to the show. My name is Natalie, where we talk all things sales, marketing, and helping you win the game. And we are back here with the boss, Greg Ross, and we have a pretty interesting topic for you today that I think is going to be really awesome, because I don't want to slowly give away Greg's story a little bit, because I want you to dive into it, especially if you're somebody here watching the show for the very first time. Greg is somebody, he has over 2 decades of sales experience, and also uniquely has actually gone through and actually interviewed hundreds of salespeople.
That's right.
For different positions within this industry of all levels. And so I don't want to give away too much, because Greg, as we break into our hot topic today, which happens to be how to break into tech sales and actually succeed.
Yes.
Your story is so amazing, because there's a lot of similarities with how you got started and the economy at the time and today's economy. And you also have a unique perspective that you've also interviewed hundreds of salespeople for different roles in this industry. And so you kind of have a really amazing, unique take that I think a lot of our viewers are going to find very valuable and informative. So if you don't mind sharing your story and kind of how you got your start into tech sales, so we can kind of take people back a little bit and kind of take them back and be a part of where you were getting as you broke into tech sales.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, first of all. Hey guys, what's up? Thanks for joining us today and watching this amazing video where we're going to give you some really good advice if you're looking to break into tech sales. My name's Greg. I'm an expert sales coach and trainer. As Natalie mentioned, I have interviewed hundreds of salespeople, hundreds of XDRs, and did that as sales leadership and also in my sales training capacity. Believe it or not, a lot of the organizations that I've worked for have brought me in on interviews to help assess, potential prospects for the job. And what's cool about that is people don't realize that the sales training process is also kind of an evaluation. So I have a keen eye, Natalie, for what it takes to be good in sales and the fundamental building blocks that have to be there to make someone an interesting candidate. So yeah, my story started in a time very similar to now, right? 2024, we're headed into a recession. Things are kind of difficult. The economy has some strong headwinds, and it did back when I broke into tech sales in 2010 timeframe. So that was really a tough time to get into, to start a career in sales, because we had a recession at that time. The economy was not going well. Interest rates were skyrocketing. Lots of companies were shrinking their talent pool, and I was able to successfully get in then. And I think that I can help our viewers create a plan to help them successfully break into tech sales today as well.
I love that. Thank you so much. And that's what I think is so unique about your story is you got into tech sales when at a time there was just a lot of uncertainty. And I know today a lot of our viewers are trying to do the exact same thing, and they really don't know where to start, how to get started. And not only that, but like, what is important when you do get that interview? What are some things that can help you be successful? And then what does success look like on the back end when you finally secure that job? So I guess let's just go ahead and jump in. What can people do to actually prepare and try and land a job to begin with in tech sales? How do they actually break into this industry?
Yeah, well, it's not easy. I've been listening to a lot of the chatter on LinkedIn right now, and people are talking about how difficult it is to get a job in tech sales. First of all, there's a lot of layoffs happening, right? So, and a lot of the even entry-level positions, employers are now looking for somebody that has experience already, which makes it difficult. That's the old paradox. How do I get into an entry-level position, which is supposed to be for someone with no experience, when they require you to have experience, right? It's very difficult. Right. So I feel like there's a ton of talent competition that's happening right now. People are really trying to stand out in a crowd of, job seekers that are looking for the same job. So what I'm going to teach you guys how to do today is to actually create a strategy for yourself that will be successful. And it's based off of really a fundamental principle that we use in sales all the time. And it's establishing an emotional connection, an emotional bond with the person that you're talking to, right? It's true in sales now. Natalie, I'm sure you've seen this as well. When you can create an emotional connection to somebody, if whether they're a buyer of your product that you're selling or whether it's a boss that's looking to hire salespeople, that emotional connection can result in you getting hired. So that as we go step by step through this plan, I just want the viewers to keep in mind that's the overarching theme of this. We have to get ourselves to a place where we have an opportunity to build that emotional connection with someone who's hiring for the position that you want to be working.
I love that you pointed that out, and that's where we're actually starting this, because don't you think that's actually one of the key factors, even when you're actually, if you've landed the role and you're in a tech sales position and you want to be successful, having that ability to connect with people, where people actually feel like you're listening to them and you're having a conversation instead of just versus just pitching them or things like that. I love that. I think that this is such a important attribute that you can talk about getting into the role and then once you're in it as well. So it's really interesting that that's, where we're starting.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really difficult. You have to warm it up somehow, right? Because if you're just out of college or if you're looking to transition from some other career path into a tech sales career, which by the way, brilliant move if that's your plan, because you can make a lot of money in tech sales and do really, really well for yourself. I know this as somebody who didn't have a college degree, was a juvenile delinquent, turned his life around, didn't have any of like the advantages. I was able to really build a great career for myself in tech sales, and but that's really hard to do if you don't warm up somehow the relationship with the hiring manager, because if you don't have the skills and you just come in off the street with no skills and with nothing to work with, even that emotional connection is a little bit of a stretch to get you the job. So I recommend that we actually start our journey into tech sales with a little sales skills development.
I love it. Let's start there. And I want to preface this. If you haven't already watched one of our previous, I think it was actually last week's video of the show where we talked about how to actually be a top performer in sales, Greg actually dives into his story in deep and how he actually got his start. So if you want to know more about his story, the really in-depth part of it, I really encourage y'all to check out that video as well. And I'll be sure to link that in the show notes below.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for doing that, Natalie. That'll be really helpful context. And just like you'll be establishing an emotional connection when you watch the previous episode and you hear me share my story, I'm sure that you'll be able to relate to that, right? And you'll see parts of your own life in my story. So those are the kinds of things that build that rapport and those connections. And before we even go there, so before we establish that connection with the hiring manager so we can communicate our story to them, it's good to build just at least a minimal foundation of skills training. So what I recommend if you're looking to go into sales at all, but specifically tech sales or software sales, take a course on cold calling. That's probably the number one skill that if you can say that you already have had some instruction in, it's going to really help you. Cold calling still is in 2024 the number one key to success in a sales career. Being able to pick up the phone and call a human being and sell them over the phone is invaluable. So if you can find a sales coach and purchase one session, any session, I would recommend it be a session on cold calling. And
and I cut in and just say, you guys, it's your lucky day because Mr. Greg Ross is actually a sales coach himself, which I'm also going to put a link for that in the description as well. Because you've helped hundreds of reps be successful in this, and so that's something that you could absolutely help them with as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm one of those people that offers a cold calling course, but wherever you go, make sure that it's a course that, you have an expert teacher, someone who actually has done cold calling and knows how to do it successfully. And some kind of documentation is really good. If you can get a certificate from that person or a recommendation, that's really going to help you prove that you have some fundamental skills. So that's step one. So first step, find a teacher, take a cold call training course and get some fundamental skills under your belt. Now, if you want to go above and beyond the cold calling, discovery questions, that's a great course to take. Objection handling is a great course to take. Email copywriting, cold emailing, that's a great course to take. Those things are all going to make you stand out from a sea of people that have never been in sales but want to break in, right? So that's That's the first place you have to go.
Love it. That is a great first tip. So, okay, let's fast forward. Let's say that someone just went through a course, several courses with you. They've had several sessions. What do they do after that?
Yeah. So the next step is really sitting down at your computer with a cup of coffee. And I want you to think about your why, right? There's a great video on YouTube. There's a guy named Simon Sinek who has this is like gotta be one of the top 10 most famous YouTube videos of all time. But he has a TED Talk where he talks about the importance of not just understanding what you do, but why you do it. It's called the Golden Circle, or start with the why.
So good.
Yeah. It's so good. Everyone in sales has seen that video, including the people that you're going to be interviewing with for a tech sales position. Everybody. And most sales leaders have sent it out to their sales reps as well. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about your life. Think about the adversity that you've been through, the challenges that you've been through, right? Did you grow up in poverty? Were you raised by a single mother or a single parent, right? Did you struggle with bullying when you were a child? Like, what was it that helped shape you into the person that you are today, that made you tougher, that made you more resilient, that made you more determined, right? And I want you really to figure out what that is and channel into that. And let's really think about that. And it helps if you type it out, but you want to be able to tell that story. When you talk to people, you want them to understand not just that you want to be in tech sales, but why it's so important for you to achieve that goal. What is it that drives you, your purpose, your motivation, your dream? We need to get that down on paper.
No, I love that. That is, it's like letting the passion really shine through. So when you're speaking to someone, they'll hear that in your voice too. And it's a driving factor. But I want to challenge you a little bit on this. What if you're somebody who you went to college, you had a great childhood growing up,
Sure.
you really don't feel like you were bullied. There are none of those those moments where they're really challenging, where you can use those and kind of lean in. What if overall you've had a pretty great, easy life without
Yeah.
any trauma?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting call out, because actually I hear that feedback from folks that are Gen Z, right? And millennials that sometimes come to me and say, I didn't have a hard life. I didn't have any challenges or adversity that I had to push through, right? And if that's you, I'm happy for you. That's actually really good.
Great.
But that being said, we need to figure out where you're going to channel that motivation from. So if you didn't have that, one of the things that I noticed that a lot of people in Gen Z and a lot of millennials, including myself, I'm a millennial, struggle with is anxiety,
Yep.
fear and anxiety. It can be crippling, right? I've talked to a lot of people that they've had a good life, great childhood, but they're introverted and they're full of anxiety, and they struggle sometimes to talk to people that they don't know. They struggle when it comes to putting themselves out there. So if that's you and you didn't have a ton of adversity or challenges in your life, but you struggle with anxiety, if all you do is send LinkedIn connection requests to tech salespeople, build up a good base of connections, couple hundred people, and you put a post on LinkedIn and say, I'm trying to break into a career in tech sales, but I struggle with anxiety. I'm curious to know, how were you able to overcome anxiety in your life to be successful in sales? You will get people responding to that like crazy. Everybody wants to talk about that, because the truth is a lot of people in sales struggle with anxiety. It's a common issue, including myself. So everyone is really eager to share when it comes to that. And by the way, those people that reply to that post, those are people that you need to take the next step with, which we can talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, what does the next step really look like then? Because I'm sure at that very moment, I know if I was sitting on the other end of the screen, that would have caught my attention. Because you're right, a lot of people struggle with anxiety. A lot of people struggle with stressing out over the small stuff. That doesn't really seem like small stuff. I mean, it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
very common in today's world. So how can somebody like that be successful in sales, and what can they do next?
Yeah. So actually, before I answer that question, I want to backtrack just a little, because there is a third category. There's people that didn't struggle with, their childhood or their origin story, and they don't have anxiety.
There you go. I want to meet these people.
So I know, right? These are really amazing people when you meet them. They're rare, but they are out there. So if that's you, then I want you to think about what your goal is, right? What's your dream? Do you want to break out of the 9 to 5? Do you want to own a business? Do you want to start a nonprofit? Like, what is your dream down the road, right? I'm not talking about being in sales, but what is that dream that you're going to use to help motivate you along your sales journey so that you can build up the financial capital to fund that dream? And I hear people say things like, I really want to take care of my mother, right? I would love to do special things for her, buy her a house or whatever it is, right? Think about that dream. I want to start a nonprofit to help people with developmental disabilities or to help. I just spoke to a young woman in France the other day who's in sales, and her dream is to start a scholarship fund for teenage girls in Brazil, where she's from originally, that want to go to college and want to develop business skills. So focus on that dream, and that's what's going to get you through. But I digress, right? Once you have that why figured out for yourself, then the next step is you need to start reaching out and you need to start contacting some people, right? And actually making connections and seeing if you can schedule time with people. Now, if they reply to a post like what I talked about on LinkedIn, great people to connect with, but also send connection requests out to the hiring managers that are hiring for these roles and tell them, my name's Greg. I'd like to break into tech sales. I struggle with XYZ, or my dream, my goal, my vision is to be a founder of a company someday, whatever your dream is. Can I book 15 minutes with you and get some advice? I would say yes to that, wouldn't you, Natalie?
Yeah, I'm thinking right off the bat, absolutely, especially on a platform of LinkedIn where it's young professionals, it's professionals in general who are looking to grow. And that's the whole point. It's, you got to remember, the core concept of social media is to connect, it's to communicate. And especially LinkedIn is the perfect place for that. That is such a great piece of advice.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Don't slack when it comes to this, right? Because the more people you connect with, the more people you tell your story to, the more people that you book time with to get advice, the more chances you have that you're going to get an opportunity. And it has to revolve around your why. It has to revolve around your personal story. If it doesn't, and you reach out to these people and you say something like, I'd like to learn more about the role, you're Natalie, you are a social media marketing expert. I know you have that red X emoji with the buzzer sound. Like, just do
Yeah.
that thing,
Did
because
you hear
that's
me?
what.
I was just like, oh, like it's like an immediate like cringe.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about the role. I'd like to make money in sales.
Oh,
I'd like to learn more about what you do. Like, it's got to be around your dream, your story, your why. And it has to be relatable, something that they might look at and say, you know what, I struggled with that too. And yeah, I can take 15 minutes to help this person because they see themselves in you. Does that make sense?
that is such a good piece of advice. And it's not just I want to learn more about this role. It's truly about the bigger picture and where you want to go, and the advice, the information that you can obtain by connecting with that person. And so really taking the time to craft a thoughtful, personable message when you reach out to them. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. And, if you can sit down with them virtually, like we're talking right now, and maybe send them a $5 Starbucks gift card or something for their time, they'll talk to you, they'll give you some advice, but they'll remember that conversation. And if you have a good foundation of sales skills, you've taken a cold calling course, you've taken an emailing course, you've done some discovery questions training, you have a few recommendations from people, right, written down and ready to share, hopefully on your LinkedIn. That's where they should be. But if you've done all of those things, then you'll find that those people naturally kind of transition into asking you some questions. Well, okay, if you were to get a job in tech sales, like, what would you, where would you see yourself in 5 years? Or, they start asking you questions, and that means that they're considering helping you out, right? So you need to have a thoughtful approach to how you answer those questions. You want to come across as ambitious, hardworking, seriously driven and motivated, unreasonable in your motivation to succeed, because it ties back to your personal story. And when you hear those kinds of questions, that that person is considering helping you out, right? And then the last step is the amazing kind of secret sauce that pulls all of this together.
Well, I don't even have a guess. Like, what would that even be?
Well, you've baited the hook, right? You picked the right spot to go fishing. You're there at the right time of day. You're there at the right season, right? You know the fish that you're trying to catch. You toss the line in the water and you wait for the call, right? And you keep reaching out to new people. And I promise you, if you do this, if you just reach out to people and you keep that flow going and you keep reaching out and keep reaching out, keep growing your network, keep sharing your story with people, if you are willing to be transparent and get personal, get a little personal and vulnerable, sooner or later, you'll get that call or you'll get that message that says, hey, why don't you come in and interview? I know the person that's hiring for this job. I told them about your story and they'd like to speak with you. And when you get that call, then you're on. That's the show. You got to be ready to go and you have to perform at your absolute best. Eat your Wheaties for that
I
one.
I love it.
That's an important conversation.
Yeah, it really is. So, I mean, this is amazing. So, leading up and when they're having all these conversations and they're really investing time every single day to establish these connections, would you recommend that? I mean, even if it's not within tech sales or the sales industry, would you recommend they go out and even does it help to have a job like doing like door to door sales or any? Do you think when you, as somebody who has interviewed hundreds and hundreds of salespeople looking to break into this industry, did you find that gave people a slight advantage over those who didn't?
Yeah, there are certain rites of passage in the sales world that people respect heavily. Door-to-door sales is one, right? I have a friend that works for a roofing company. He does door-to-door sales. He goes around, knocks on people's doors, and offers to replace their roof, right? And it's a grind, but there's no better way to kind of train yourself on how to talk to people, how to make a pitch, objection handling. That's a job that people highly respect, right? I'll give you a couple just so the viewers know like what the low-hanging fruit is. So that's one. There's companies out there that are like payroll companies like ADP, which is a company that I spent time working for, has a world-class sales organization, and there are truly entry-level positions. There's companies like Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where you have the sales of rental car agreements, right, to customers. And that's a great that's a great organization that people like to hire from. And there's the fitness industry. If you can get a job selling gym memberships, right, and working in the fitness industry, if you have the physique for that. I wouldn't be a credible, gym membership salesperson, but if that's you, then that's another great rite of passage. And a lot of organizations draw from those organizations to find sales at the entry level.
That's amazing advice. I mean, really from almost every different aspect, from being able to sit down in front of your computer, really look internally and like what's going to be your driving factor. And then also things that you can go out and you can do and you can be proactive. Those are amazing, valuable tips for someone who's really looking to break into this industry and be successful too.
Yeah. Now there's some people out there that maybe they have a role in sales already. They're in tech sales already, right? And they're just getting started. Still learn your why, learn how to tell your story, right? Learn how to tell people why you're doing what you're doing. What is your dream? What's your journey? If you've just been laid off from tech sales or in the sales industry, that's the number one way that you can distinguish yourself, right? Learn to tell your story, learn how to tell your personal why. That emotional connection will help you. If you're a top performing sales rep and you want to do 20% more sales next year, learn how to share at the right moment your personal motivation and your why with some of your buyers that you have the rapport with to do that, right? This is a universal thing that will help you no matter where you're at in that process. So for those of you maybe that have a career in sales already and you just follow my channel and you're watching all my videos, binge watching Greg Ross at 2 a.m. Still learn how to tell your personal story. It's going to really benefit you. And Natalie, I can share a story actually from my personal experience.
I would love that. Please.
When it made all the difference, right? So there was a gentleman who was a gymnastics champ. He was like a champion athlete, male gymnast, and he wanted to get into tech sales. And I actually, when I interview people for sales positions, I usually challenge them. I ask about their why, and I challenge them to know if it's really strong enough to get them through the rejection and like all the things that come along with sales. And he assured me that it was, and I challenged him. I said, I'm not sure that being an athlete is a strong enough motivation for you to be successful in sales. I don't know if that's digging deep enough. There are athletes that play the game and lose, right? And they decide they don't want to be athletes anymore. So he was so fired up by that. I told him no on the position. A couple weeks later, he started sending me messages on LinkedIn, and I opened these messages, and it's a video of him doing like backflips. And he's like, I'm going to do 6 backflips in a row to show you how bad I want this position in sales. And he's like doing all these backflips. And then the next one, he's like, I'm going to plank for 2 minutes straight to show you how bad I want this. And after like 3 of these videos, I said, you know what? We need to hire this guy because he's showing that initiative, that drive, that motivation. I stand corrected. Maybe it is strong enough. So that determination and that drive really counts for a lot, and that will get you the job if you're willing to tap into it and you want the job bad.
I love that. I mean, and what is more personable than that? Like truly,
Oh yeah.
you're reaching out to someone. Because I can tell you this, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the other end watching this, and they're like, okay, well, how do I craft the perfect message to send to somebody to be my first message? And I mean, it's the key is being personable. It truly
Yeah.
is. That's amazing.
That's right. Not all of us can do backflips.
Right now,
I certainly, but
no, it's not happening there.
but we all have the ability to tap into that story, our personal why, the challenges we face, the adversity, or the goals and dreams that we have. We all can tap into that, channel that, and we can use that as our story to get into sales, get better at sales, play a better game in sales, or get back into sales if we've been laid off. That is our superpower. And if you're watching this, you really need to channel into that.
I love that, Greg. I'm feeling so inspired right now, and I'm sure the other people on the everyone watching this is. I mean, I'm seeing her. I feel motivated. I feel inspired. Where can they get more of you?
Yeah, well, if that's you, if you want help breaking into sales and you want to take a cold calling course or whatever, go to my website. Natalie, I think, can put a link in the description below and book a free coaching session with. I do a free initial session. Spoiler alert, I'm going to want to talk about your why, right? And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But if you end up purchasing a cold calling session from me or a discovery question session or objection handling session, I will write you a recommendation after the session. And that's going to count for a lot, and I will vouch for you. So if that's you, or if you've been laid off and you're trying to get back in, same offer is on the table. If you can tell me your story and you can make an emotional connection with me and you pass that course, I will personally write you a recommendation to help you out.
That's incredible. Like, I don't know why people wouldn't go down, and it's, you guys, I'm going to put it right below in the show notes. You're just going to click that. You'll be able to book a time and a date with him, and he'll spend that time with you one-on-one. For those of you who want to watch 2 a.m. Greg Ross videos, where do they go and see more of you?
That's my fam bam right there. I appreciate you guys. So you can find me on TikTok, the Greg Ross. You can find me on YouTube, the Greg Ross. I'm on LinkedIn, Greg Ross, Phantom Sales. Send me a connection, follow me, subscribe, like. That's my love language. So let's do it. And also plug into my email newsletter on my website, and you'll get great tips from me every few weeks on, pro tips when it comes to sales. We'll dive deeper into the topics that you see on these videos. And also, I created a top rep checklist, which has been very popular. It's a great tool to kind of see my take on what makes a great sales rep and how to stack yourself up against those 5 categories that I've identified. So if we can drop a link to that too, that would probably be really cool for them.
We most certainly will. So how to get your foot in the door and how to be successful, all that is right below. You can take advantage of all that. I'm not going to miss anything there. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. You guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe. It's the gift that keeps on giving, just like Greg's newsletter. You can come back, you can watch us every single week where we talk about different topics here on the show, all things sales, marketing, and helping you win the game. Greg Ross, thank you. We will see you next time.
You're the best. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.